For thousands of years, humanity faced an invisible, terrifying killer, and for almost all that time, we thought we knew exactly what it was. Bad air. Imagine a world where disease struck like lightning, unpredictable, unexplained. One day you're well, the next you're racked with fever, your neighbor coughing, your child suddenly gone. No one could see the enemy, but the human mind, desperate for answers, sought patterns. And one pattern was undeniable. Where there was death, there was often a terrible smell. Cities reeked of human waste, animal carcasses, and stagnant water. Swamps emitted a pungent, sickly sweet odor. And sickness, it seemed, followed these stinks with grim predictability. So the most intuitive, logical conclusion emerged. Disease was caused by bad air, noxious vapors, or miasma, rising from decaying matter. It just made sense. This wasn't some primitive superstition, mind you. In an era without microscopes or germ theory, miasma was a remarkably sophisticated, rational response to an incomprehensible threat. It provided an explanation, a tangible enemy, and crucially, a way to fight back. But how did this bad air theory evolve into a foundational medical idea, shaping health for millennia? The roots of miasma theory stretched deep into antiquity, finding its most eloquent early champion in the father of medicine himself, Hippocrates. Around 400 BC, Hippocrates meticulously detailed how different diseases correlated with environmental factors, seasons, winds, and particularly the emanations from marshy lands. His treatise, Airs, Waters, Places, became foundational, positing that illness arose from an imbalance in the body, often provoked by inhaled pestilential airs or vapors. The Romans, ever practical, embraced this concept, leading to monumental feats of engineering like their aqueducts, bringing fresh water to the cities and carrying waste away. They built elaborate sewer systems like the Cloaca Maxima, primarily to remove the bad air generated by waste, believing it would improve public health. And it did, inadvertently. So, from ancient Greece to the peak of the Roman Empire, the idea of putrid exhalations causing disease solidified, shaping medical practice for centuries to come. But miasma wasn't just a theory debated in learned circles. It dramatically altered how societies structured their very existence. If bad air was the enemy, how did cities literally reshape their world to fight it?
Fast forward to the 19th century and the belief in miasma was stronger than ever. Cities were growing at an unprecedented rate, but so were their problems. In London, the infamous Great Stink of 1858 saw the River Thames become an open sewer, so putrid that Parliament sessions had to be suspended. The stench was truly unbearable. But this wasn't just an aesthetic problem, it was believed to be a direct cause of epidemics. So, vast sums were poured into infrastructure projects. Joseph Bazalgette's monumental sewer system for London, completed in 1865, was a direct response to miasma fears, designed to whisk away waste and its accompanying bad air. Similarly, Baron Haussmann's radical redesign of Paris in the mid-19th century, those iconic wide boulevards, was partly intended to allow fresh air to circulate, sweeping away disease-laden miasmas. Cities were quite literally redesigned, their very foundations altered, to combat an invisible enemy that wasn't actually there. But nobody knew that yet. And when the invisible killer struck with terrifying force, demanding direct action, what tangible, desperate measures did people take, driven by the belief in bad air?
Perhaps no image embodies miasma theory quite as dramatically as the plague doctor with their instantly recognizable, terrifying bird-like mask. Emerging during the devastating outbreaks of the 17th century, this costume wasn't merely macabre fashion, it was a desperate, if ultimately futile, medical intervention. The long beak, often 6 inches or more, was stuffed with strong-smelling aromatic substances, dried flowers, herbs, spices like myrrh and camphor, even vinegar. The idea was that these potent scents would purify the air, acting as a filter against the pestilential miasmas, preventing them from entering the doctor's lungs. The heavy, waxed linen or leather coat, gloves, and hat were thought to provide further protection, forming a barrier against the contaminated air. It's a striking image of human ingenuity and fear, all channeled into fighting a perceived airborne threat. But what happened when disease struck and the telltale bad smell wasn't there? For all its intuitive strength, miasma theory began to show cracks when confronted with diseases that didn't fit the bad air narrative. Cholera, in particular, was a perplexing enigma. Unlike the bubonic plague or typhus, its outbreaks didn't always coincide with the most putrid environments. Sometimes cholera would sweep through seemingly clean neighborhoods or spare those living amidst filth. The elegant logic of miasma was faltering. Doctors were left scratching their heads. If it wasn't the smell, what was it? The invisible killer was becoming truly baffling once more.
They tried everything, smoking out houses, lighting bonfires in the streets, even firing cannons to clear the air. Nothing seemed to work reliably. The world needed a new explanation, a different way to see the invisible enemy. And that's when a rather quiet, unassuming physician made a map that murdered miasma. In the sweltering summer of 1854, a devastating cholera outbreak gripped London's Broad Street. The stench of the Thames, still a giant open sewer, was a popular culprit. But Dr. John Snow, a physician and anesthesiologist, had a different hunch. He didn't focus on the air, but on patterns. Snow began to meticulously map every single cholera case, plotting them as dots on a city plan. It was painstaking work, tracing routes, counting deaths, and noting residences. And what his map revealed was shocking. The deaths weren't scattered randomly by some pervasive bad air. Instead, they clustered tightly, unmistakably, around one particular public water pump. He couldn't see the germs, of course, but he saw the pattern they left behind. A contaminated water source, not a foul atmosphere, was the true killer. Snow's evidence was compelling, even without a microscope. He persuaded local authorities to remove the pump handle, and the outbreak dramatically subsided. The 2,000-year reign of miasma theory had finally been challenged by a map and a discarded pump handle. Yet, despite this breakthrough, why did the radical idea of germs face such fierce resistance?
John Snow's work was largely dismissed for years. The idea that tiny, invisible animalcules could cause disease seemed utterly outlandish to many. Established medical professionals, steeped in miasma theory, found the concept of germs unscientific, illogical, and frankly, a bit insulting. The eminent German physician Rudolf Virchow famously said, "I don't find it at all convenient to replace the venerable miasma with a new demon." He wasn't alone. After all, how could something you couldn't see, smell, or taste be so deadly? Miasma at least offered a tangible, if wrongly interpreted, sensory experience. It highlights humanity's deep-seated reluctance to abandon a coherent worldview, even a wrong one, for a truth that was, at the time, entirely unseeable. But science has a way of revealing inconvenient truths. So, how did a series of groundbreaking discoveries finally allow humanity to see the unseen, forever changing our understanding of life and death?
The true turning point arrived not with a single person, but a cascade of discoveries, starting with Louis Pasteur in the 1860s. Pasteur's famous swan neck flask experiments definitively debunked the theory of spontaneous generation, proving that microbes don't just appear from thin air, but come from other microbes. He showed that invisible microbes were responsible for fermentation and spoilage, leading logically to the conclusion that they could also cause disease. Then came Robert Koch, who in the 1870s and 80s refined techniques to isolate and identify specific microbes responsible for specific diseases, like anthrax, tuberculosis, and cholera. Koch's postulates provided a rigorous scientific framework to prove that a particular microorganism caused a particular disease. The invisible enemy was finally being seen, isolated, and understood. Improved microscopy also played a vital role, allowing scientists to literally peer into a previously unseen world, transforming vague ideas into undeniable visual evidence. The medical revolution had begun. Miasma, the bad air that once held medicine captive for millennia, finally collapsed under the weight of observable, reproducible scientific truth. But why did miasma theory hold sway for so long? It offered agency in a terrifying world, a logical explanation that resonated with sensory experience. We are, after all, creatures of intuition, and a bad smell feels dangerous. It takes immense intellectual humility to look beyond our senses, beyond what seems obvious. Even today, elements of miasma theory linger in our collective consciousness. We blame pollution for illness, worry about stale air, and fear airborne viruses. The narrative of bad air remains a potent, almost ancestral, way of understanding invisible threats, a testament to its compelling, if incorrect, power. The 2,000-year delusion of bad air was finally shattered not by a single discovery, but by the relentless pursuit of visible patterns and the eventual ability to truly see the invisible architects of disease. It's a powerful reminder. The world often works in ways far stranger and more complex than our senses first suggest. And sometimes, the most unhinged idea is actually the truth. And this is just one story among countless mysteries history left behind. Subscribe, and let's keep uncovering them together. And if this one got you thinking, a like or a share helps more curious minds find it.